And good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on Grabs TV and The Sicko Show. I'm your host, the Matty Man. I'm a little bit under the weather tonight. Just got back from WrestleCade, and I've got to tell you, I had a lot of time, a lot of good times, a lot of fun times, a lot of meet and greets, a lot of cool stuff, so to speak. Excuse me. It's going to be like this all night, guys. I'm going to probably break away on this stream here after we do the live review of WrestleCade and get ready for the Dynamite watch-along. So, let's talk about WrestleCade. That's right. Whew. We got one viewer in the house. Somebody showed up. It's been a week. I know. People are probably still trying to figure it out and everything. Here's 3. All right. We're moving up in this world. Quite awesome. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. 3's better than 0. But you know what? I'll talk to NPR. I don't care. So, WrestleCade ran from this past Friday, November 29th, and the 30th and the 1st. We had quite a phenomenal time there. Got about 6.5 hours worth of sleep, but I got some stories for y'all that are my own personal stories. You know, I've got a few of my own because, you know, I was there kicking it with Mr. Starks and his videographer, Covalent TV. Lots of goodwill all the way around. You see a couple of them here. I'm digging through right now to try to find some pictures to kind of replace some stuff here, so to speak. I've got the WrestleCade posters they had up. Obviously, you can see the snowfall in the background there. And for those folks in the triad that may or may not be getting some winter weather this time, hey, you know, it is December. Maybe we'll get lucky and have a white Christmas this year. Who knows? But anyway, we got there Friday. It's a little bit late. I didn't get there on Friday till probably about noon. And, of course, we got checked in, the whole 9 yards. Got to meet some wonderful people whose names I possibly cannot remember. If I had known Tracy for probably, I don't know, 20, 25 years at this point, I think I've known him. If I hadn't known him, I'd have had a hard time remembering him as well, because it was just that crazy. It was absolutely insane, so to speak. Going through some stuff here. One thing I did want to highlight here, give me just a second because I got to dig just a little bit to get what I need here. Working my way through my feed. There it is. Big Bad Kaju, I think was the way he wanted that pronounced. I'm going to go ahead and put this in the chat line. I want people to take a moment. This guy's only got, well, he's got 10,000 followers, okay? He's got 10,000 followers. I really want to talk a lot about where we had some really good conversation, and I want to kick it off my pregame thoughts, so to speak, before we get too deep into the review itself. My pregame thought on this one was I went there with very little expectation because I'm still kind of in training. You know what I mean? It's kind of like training, so to speak. And I went there with an open mind, a lack of expectation, so to speak, because I realized that while I'm doing the streams and stuff, and I get it, I enjoy doing them. You know, my average viewership's in the 30s to 40s. Occasionally I'll get 100. Occasionally I'll get 100.5. Just occasionally. It's not a regular thing. So, yeah, and I'm sounding miserable today. I told my son, I was on the phone with him, he's like, "You're going live, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going live." And audio-wise, I automatically knew this was going to be like a punt from the beginning. So, but it was amazing. Ran into Catherine. Catherine's somebody who watches the show regularly, and we got to hang out a little bit, and we are going to do a collaboration for next year. It's a great idea, and it's a concept that, to be honest with you, I don't even think the venue has that. And if the venue doesn't have it, and she had a thought about it, the venue doesn't have it, and I got to thinking to myself, when you think about it from a standpoint of fan experience, a fan experience is something that's very important to your event, and it seems to me like the idea she came up with was absolutely phenomenal. So I'm going to bounce that one off of Tracy to see if it's okay to do it that way, because I think it would probably enhance the event, probably give it sort of a bigger feel, so to speak, as if you could give it a bigger feel. He's been averaging 10,000 on the regular, and he said they almost doubled that this year, so I thought that was absolutely phenomenal. And there's a reason for that. WrestleCade in Winston-Salem, my pregame thoughts are this. There is a little bit of politics, but that's to be expected in the world of wrestling. There's always going to be politics. Everybody's always going to be jockeying for their spot, their space, and everything else. And so if you run into that, that's something you should expect. And, of course, navigating it was kind of hard because a lot of it was directed, or I felt like it was, at me. And I'm like, okay, I'm new. I admit that I'm new. I'm green. I admit that I'm green. Now, let's get past it. And, of course, a couple of more shots, and once everybody realized that I wasn't there to, be a brash asshole, things kind of lightened up, and next year's going to be better. Had a conversation with both and all the people involved, and they're like, yeah, now that we've seen you move, we're going to be cool with it going forward. I had to move kind of stealthy, so to speak. I felt like I was moving kind of like ninja all over the place. But it was really, really, really fun, and we need more of that. And not only do we need more of that, we need more of it in the South. Because I keep hearing about how great Chicago is, and I keep hearing about how great New England is, and I keep hearing about how great California is. But back in the day, you used to hear about how great Charlotte was, Greensboro. Winston-Salem, of all places, believe it or not, was a hotbed for the NWA. Excuse me. So I think what Tracy's doing there is phenomenal. It is much needed for the area. It was much needed for the industry. And to be honest with you, I got a little bit deeper into the wrestling world. And I saw some stuff that I wasn't exactly crazy about, but then I saw plenty of stuff that was like, this is why I got into this. This is why I've been a fan for years. This is why I decided to do a podcast. So here we are. Pre-game thoughts, though, the only complaint, and I probably voiced this with everybody, and everybody kind of agreed with me, maybe next year we get some runners, or in the alternative, I'll just get myself a little scooter and just ride around on the scooter, because I'm going to tell you what, it took me 2 days just to get over the fact that I was on my feet for 3 days straight on that concrete. Nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying, it's for us older folks, and I'm surprised a lot of the wrestlers could do it too, because they actually had to get in there and wrestle. It was a lot of wrestling, a lot to cover, and I'm going to do that in part 2. I'm only doing a little bit today because, number one, there's going to be a show tonight with Covalent TV, and if Mr. Starks feels like it, he's going to tell his stories. And I have a couple of stories I'm going to tell that I'm 100% sure that I'm not going to spoil any of his stuff. So I have a couple of those coming down the pike here in this little review here. But when he gets through telling his stuff, and I'm sure of everything he's got out there and everything else, where I'm sure I'm not going to, spoil something for anybody, then I'll come back on the actual review, because I'm still working on pulling all the wrestling matches together and all my notes. There was a lot, guys. I mean, there was a lot to talk about. Hornswoggle, of all people, won a huge battle royal. It was booked that way. It was beautiful, And that's just the tip of the iceberg as far as the wrestling goes. But overall, I didn't go there for the wrestling. I didn't go there, and I hate to say it this way, I didn't go there for anything except to learn. I wanted to learn. Now, I took time and enjoyed the wrestling as a fan in a lot of ways. But I have a couple of stories from that too. For those of you who may not be aware now, my new nickname is Bowtie Guy, because apparently I walked in with a gimmick and didn't realize I had a gimmick. It's a whole lot of stuff to learn. Hey, Catherine, how you doing? I was just chopping up about that thing we were talking about at WrestleCade. I think I'm going to do that. I like that idea. I'm just bouncing some ideas off of Tracy and waiting to hear back from him and see what he says. Because I did figure out one thing while we were at WrestleCade that, because I'm doing a lot of the undercover stuff, and I'm doing a lot of looking around and so on and so forth. Come to find out, WrestleCade itself is a media package. You get those little cards, and of course I'm sharing one here that I got. You probably saw that one on Ladies Night Out. On the back of it, you got Title Max Network. Okay, why is that important? Alright, Title Max is partnered with WrestleCade and probably about 10,000 other little promotions and so on and so forth. And they run a paid subscription service, so they had carte blanche to the media passes. And I understand that I'll be getting a media pass next year, and I think Daryl's going to be getting a media pass as well if he decides to come back. So it's my understanding that's how it's going to go. But part of the politics we ran into is the fact that they had their own little media conglomeration there. So I'm going to run that idea by Tracy to make sure that it doesn't interfere with their little... But I didn't see... With their little media conglomeration, but I didn't see anything... I didn't see anything that matched what you talked about. Not at all. But I like the idea, and I think it's a great idea. And like I said, we may hook up and do a podcast together. Who knows? I've been thinking about asking about that too. But, time constraints. And plus, I still hadn't figured out how to do the remote thing like Daryl does. And I haven't bothered to ask him yet because, I want to make sure I've got... See, now... That's what I'm trying to say, Catherine. They wouldn't even give me one. They wouldn't even give me one. They were like, we don't know you. I'm like, of course, you don't, but I couldn't go 20 feet without somebody saying, hey, I watch your show, which is amazing, because as you can see right now, I got 7 viewers, and I'm like, wow, all 7 of you in one place. I'm just kidding. No, I had probably 20, 25 people walk up to me and say they watched the show. I appreciate that. It's pretty awesome. I wish you would have spoken up on that. Well, if he'd have mentioned it this year, he needed to mention it this year because we weren't getting squat. But anyway, we got there. Obviously, ran into Catherine, and we were kind of getting everything all set up. First day we were in some little closet door, as I like to say. We were in some closet day 1 with nobody, and then day 2 we were with a lot of good people. Day 3 we had a really good spot, and Daryl got some good interviews. I didn't really get any this time because I was just there to observe. I mean, that was the one thing, observe and report. And next year I'm probably going to get quite a few there, but I've got like 6, 7 lined up myself here. I just got to go and do them remotely. The problem is, the reason I'm not reaching out to them is because I don't have a fucking clue how to do that. So I've got to play with it. I've got to figure it out. And, things work differently for everybody. Things work differently for me that work differently for you, and so on and so forth. So I got to... Yeah, do that. DM that to me, Catherine, and let's go over it, because I like the other idea we talked about, too. I got to thinking about it, and once I figured out the whole media setup they had there, then I went through the media setup to see if anybody was doing it, because that's going to be the key right there. If they have one of their little, what do they call that thing? Title Match Network people there doing that, he ain't going to let us do it. That's all there is to it. And I don't mind. I don't mind, really. I had a good time. We got there. Let's see. Starting off, let's see. Out of the gate, ran into George South. George South is a older wrestler. He's been wrestling for a long time. We kicked it for a little while. Am I dropping frames, by the way, Catherine? Can you see if I'm dropping frames? Because I'm getting I've had technical issues trying to get set up here. It's cold as balls down here right now, and usually when you got fiber optics like we got, they're not deeply buried, so the weather's kind of hurting me on this a little bit. The other idea may play into an idea. Oh no, what are we doing? What are we doing? Yeah, no, I sound like shit, and I know I sound like shit, so I figure I'm going to have a little bit of fun here. It's Wednesday night. We got Dynamite coming up tonight, and I'm going to do the Dynamite watch-along. I may take 30 minutes break in between, though. I may just break for like 30 minutes and just leave the stream running and come back to it, because the reality of it is I feel like shit. And I'm pretty sure Daryl does too, because he was sounding rough on Monday night. And of course, from what I heard from him yesterday was not. I had a phone call with him yesterday, and it was he was sounding rough. And I don't know. Somebody there was actually sick, because I wasn't sick, and the only people I hung out with were Black Dahlia, Evil Nate. And I hung out with Black Dahlia and Evil Nate most of the time. I'm going to go with, I tell you what I am going to do, though. I'm going to go ahead and get that Starlink here probably by the end of the month. I'm going to have it delivered. I'm going to drop this internet all together, and I'm going to have Starlink so I can take it with me anywhere I go, and I always have internet. So that way I don't have to worry about Wi-Fi or any of that stuff. I think I'm going to go ahead and take the plunge. It's $50 a month. One of my bosses has it. Whew. It was something about that building, I swear. I mean, everybody I know so far, and I've talked to some people since I've been back, and there was something in the air down there, man. I think everybody got sick for a few minutes. But anyway, we got there. And of course got all our stuff set up, and just a program note here. Just a program note. Oh, actually, and a side note too. I'm going to try to do a show on Friday, and I may come in early and do the second half of this one. Like I said, I'm just trying not to have any spoilers out there or anything for the world, because you know what. Mr. Starks worked his ever-loving ass off and got way more reviews and got way more interviews. I'm going to go out on a limb, just based on the amount of work I saw produced, with the exception of things that I couldn't see, because next year I think Dahlia is going to get me in the locker room, which is really cool. I think Dahlia is going to help me. Dahlia and Nate are going to help me get in the locker room, so that'll be helpful. At least I think they would. But aside from that, I mean, I was watching everybody else there. And they just seem to be fanboying it a lot. I didn't see a lot of equipment out. They had one person with equipment. And, you know, Daryl got a boatload of interviews, and he got some boatload of connection out of all that stuff. That's why I'm just kind of sitting back. I wanted to do something today, and I wanted to review a lot of WrestleCade from my perspective. The problem is he hasn't put his stuff out there yet, and I don't want to say or do anything that might screw any of that up. Not that I have the viewership he's got, but you just never know. We got there, and the first thing I did, and I wish I could remember which one it was, but I accidentally, literally ran into one of the Iconics. And, you know, that's when I was like, Daryl, they're going to move the Iconics over to this spot here. Because I literally bumped into one by accident, and I can't remember her name. But that was a cool conversation. Talked to George South for a little while, and one of the conversations I did have, I had a conversation with a wrestler, and I've got two things that I want to open up with, because this is what I drew out of WrestleCade, minus the wrestling part, minus the wrestling experience, minus all of that. These are my own personal notes, things that I drew from being at WrestleCade. Number one, the first thing I drew, because some of these people that I talked to, some of the wrestlers that I talked to are wrestlers that I had a good rapport with online and so on and so forth. They follow me on one of the social media accounts that I have, something similar to that, the whole 9 yards. And, you know, we chopped up game off camera, the whole 9 yards. And, you know, they're like, so what are you going to be doing? And I'm like, well, I'd like to do some interviews and so on and so forth. But, you know, I said, if you would like, you know, when you get done with everything, whatever, and so on and so forth, you know, I'd like to do an interview with you. And the one thing that I gleaned out of that entire scenario is I had 3 or 4 of them basically tell me the exact same thing. So this is information I wanted to share with you, like if you're going to do a podcast. Number one, don't ask the same old questions. So when did you start wrestling? When did you start blah, 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 blah. Number two, if you're going to edit it right. And number three, when you're done with the product, you send it to them to check it out. A few of them won't do interviews at all. And that includes major wrestling organizations as well. They won't even interview with regular major wrestling organization podcasts. They mentioned one in specifically. And, yeah, we chopped up about that. So one thing that I did learn is that wrestlers are very self-aware about what's going on in the podcasts. And number two, some of them don't do interviews because the particular person in question told me that the last interview they did was so bad that they literally had to get a lawyer involved because it was one of those gotcha moments. And that really broke my heart because, you know, it's hard enough to be a professional wrestler. It's hard enough to get in that clique. And then once you get in that clique, it's hard enough to get over. And once you get over, it doesn't take much to get you not over. So I didn't blame the person. The person I was talking to, I was like, you know what? I totally understand. I feel the same way. That's why I started a podcast. And they were like, what do you mean? I said, well, I see a lot of podcasts out there, and they just don't feel like they're accurate. They don't feel right. You know, they just don't feel right. And we got to talking on that level there, too. And they were like, well, I'm going to check out some of your material, and I might give you a shot when it all came down to it. But one thing that I have understood at this point is that when the big three came around, I mean, at least this guy or this group of people that I talked to were nice about it. When I think, because, you know, I didn't walk up to him and say, hey, I want to do an interview, blah, blah, blah. I had some good stories from when I was growing up and, you know, how they touched our household in particular and me personally. And the things that I remember, I told one person, Sabu would have given me an interview. I didn't take it, but he would have given me an interview after I talked to him for a little while. But at the main time, I told him, I'm like, Sabu, man, you're the guy that got me into ECW, because I was going to UNC Charlotte when ECW broke out. And I just happened to catch it on television one day, and the first match I saw was Sabu and Rob Van Dam. And I went through the whole match with him because I remembered it. And we had a good talk. And I was like, sometime if you want to, I'd like to do an interview with you, just not today because, you've already done some. And I don't want to be that guy that goes, my turn. He goes, no, catch me sometime. I said, okay. So if I catch him at another con or if I catch him at a wrestling event or something like that, then I can get the interview. But one of the things that I got from him, too, as well, is that the reason he doesn't do that many interviews to begin with is for the exact same reason. These podcasters are not out there portraying things in the best light. Their edit button gets broken, and they bring out the bad edits, and so on and so forth. So that's one thing that I gleaned from it. And the other thing is, I was trying to kind of think about how I wanted to post this, and every time I try to post it, I just couldn't get the sense of how I wanted everything to come out and how I wanted it to play out, so I just kept throwing it in the drafts, and eventually I just deleted it because it just wasn't coming together. And I said, you know what, when I go online and when I go to stream, and thank God for Dustin Rhodes and his little pop out there saying, guys, leave us alone and just enjoy wrestling. That was the nice way of putting it. In other words, wrestlers in general are just like, guys, we don't want to hear this shit anymore. Enjoy wrestling, leave us the hell alone, etc., etc. But this plays perfectly into that narrative. Because a lot of times we all get tribalistic about who we like. I mean, I'm not as tribalistic as a lot of people. I can tolerate criticism of my favorite wrestlers unless it's stupid criticism. If it's good, constructive criticism, I can tolerate it and I can even talk about it. A lot of people are not built like that. But the criticism that we've all been getting wrong, and that includes podcasters and everything else, not all podcasters. Because like I said, Covalent TV most of the time, in fact, I would say about all the time, gets it right from this subject here. But one thing that I gleaned on my wholesale inquiry, if you will, out there on the streets collecting intel, collecting facts, data, statistics, I have determined, and some wrestlers actually told me this point blank, and I'm not mentioning names at all yet because my show either on Friday or Saturday, one show that I do on just WrestleCade, once Mr. Starks gets all his stuff out, I'm going to do mine. I'm going to go through some of the interactions that I had with the wrestlers. It was I'm going to tell you right now, if you've never been to a wrestling convention, you should go. You should go. If you're not going, I don't even know why you're not going. Because it supports the wrestlers. It's your best opportunity for a boots-on-the-ground conversation with people. And a lot of times you catch them in certain scenarios where they're just normal people. And you can have those conversations and you can kick that stuff out there. One story I can tell, because it's not going to mess with Daryl, just to give you an idea. Now, I'm at WrestleCade. And Daryl tells me, he's like, all right, now you dress up, dress nice, don't be coming in here in no sweatpants and all this other garbage like some of these people are going to do. You dress neat, you dress nice, you dress the part. So I go out there and I buy myself a white shirt, some khaki pants, and I figured a tie would be kind of helpful because I didn't know how he was going to show up. I'm just doing this, so I bought a bow tie. And, of course, I'm at WrestleCade, and I'm the only person there with a tie, period. So I'm like, well, this was stupid. But I couldn't figure out how to get the tie off, so I just stuck with it, right? So I'm doing this the whole freaking weekend. And apparently my locker room nickname now is Bowtie Guy. And apparently everybody thought this was a gimmick And I did not in any way, shape, or form intentionally come in there with the idea of cutting a gimmick. But, and this is what feeds into the story, I actually ran into a fan, somebody, if you're watching the stream, you could back me up on this. I ran into a guy from Charlotte who had his kid there, and we were chopping up a little bit about wrestling and things of that nature. And we're up on the top floor, and I look over the corner. I catch out of the corner of my eye Zilla Fatu and his entourage. And Zilla Fatu, by the way, has a serious ass-kicking looking entourage. I'm not even going to play. I mean, those gentlemen right there are definitely big, intimidating, etc. They look like they could throw anything and its brother out of a bar without even breaking a sweat. That's his entourage. So I do the thing that I tell people to do. When you're in and amongst celebrities, people who are famous, people who are important to the event that you're at, it's okay to make eye contact. It's okay to nod, smile, how you doing, so on and so forth. But don't be a fanboy around them. They get plenty of that stuff. So I'm standing there and I nod to him and smile and kind of throw my hand up like that because I know it's Zilla Fatu and I'm not going to be disrespectful and not acknowledge the presence of another wrestler standing around me. And he just stops. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe he sees the kid and he wants to get the kid's attention, because Zilla Fatu, by the way, is phenomenal with children. I'm serious. This guy right here is going to have a very successful career. It does not matter where he goes. Zilla Fatu could go to your local gymnasium and get over. Just from the way I saw him carrying himself, and I'm not glazing or anything like that. I'm not putting him on an unnecessarily high pedestal. This guy showed up and produced in a way that I found not only remarkable, because there were some wrestlers there, and this is why I'm not calling out names, because if I start, I'll wind up getting in trouble. But there were some wrestlers whom you expect to be assholes, and they came as expected. And some of them were the whole ass. But Zilla Fatu, the most obviously on the independent scene right now, one of the, if not the most famous independent wrestlers on the planet, was just another guy the whole way around. He was just a fan like the rest of us. I mean, he even snuck into the matches and watched some of the matches that he wasn't even wrestling in. This guy literally lives, breathes, sleeps, and eats wrestling. But that's not even here nor there. So I'm smiling and, I wave my hand like that. And he sticks his finger out like that, points straight at me, and he goes, "Bow tie guy." I'm like, "I guess. How are you doing, sir?" He's like, "I've been seeing you around, so on and so forth. What do you do?" And I told him what I did. It's like, yeah. And he's like, "Well, now, do you have a guide on you?" And I'm like, "No, I don't have a program, whatever the thing." He says, "Well, I'm supposed to be here for a signing." And I says, "Say less. I'll go figure it out. I don't know the answer, but I know the person who does know the answer." So he handed me one of his guys, just said, "Go with him." And we went downstairs. We got everything lined up, the whole 9 yards. And that gentleman was so nice. And I say gentleman because away from the ring, away from the gimmick, away from everything else, and I didn't even ask if that was his real name. I'm doubting it's his real name. I doubt anybody's name's Zilla. The Fatu part I get, but I doubt Zilla. But you don't know. You never know. But every time I walked by, man, he was just like, "Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you." And I was like, finally, I was like, you know what? Sometime when you're not busy, which is never, could I get an interview with you? He's like, "Yeah, hit me up on the marketing thing. I'll do it," so on and so forth. That kind of interaction. I'm just here to tell you right now, when Zilla Fatu finally does get signed, I think he probably will get signed by WWE. That gentleman right there's got some built-in street cred with me. Always will, always going to be a fan, never going to not be a fan. And it was wild, because all of a sudden I went from bow tie guy to Bowtie Guy with some kind of street cred all of a sudden because Zilla Fatu called me out. I thought, man, if that ain't something else, because it was. But, Zilla Fatu wrestled the entire weekend. I think he worked 3 matches. I know he worked one match night 1. I know he worked one match. No, I don't think he worked anything for TNA. So he wrestled on Friday night, Sunday night. Or maybe he wrestled Saturday during the day. I don't know. I might have missed that one. No, he did wrestle. He wrestled. He did not wrestle Friday night because that was the. I think that was Turning Point Friday night, something to that effect. So, no, he did wrestle Friday during the day. They did some work during the day, and then they had Turning Point Friday night. Saturday he wrestled it twice. He wrestled 2 shows on Saturday, and then wrestled on Sunday. So yeah, I mean, and in between the matches, he was running out doing signings, autographs, so on and so forth. I got a Zilla Fatu t-shirt. I just, the guy turned out to be gold, and I didn't know how to take him. And I'm pretty sure he didn't know how to take me either because I'm an old Southern dude. Didn't sound like everybody else. Didn't walk like everybody. I did walk like an old wrestler. So a lot of people figured I was a wrestler. They just didn't know who the hell I was. So that was a fun time. The matches were scripted and choreographed correctly. This was not your average independent show. And I kept saying that every time I'd see something Tracy did, I'm like, wow, I see what you did there. And I'm like, and then something would happen, something weird would happen. I'd go home, think about it. By the time I got back the next day, I totally understood what they were doing. And I was like, it took me a few minutes for that to click, but when it clicked, man, that was pretty. I said, what made you think of that? See, the beautiful part of it is I could kind of interview people without interviewing them, and that's what gave me where I'm going next. Yeah, Tracy and I had some good conversation. We talked about booking and everything else. The main takeaway that I got from WrestleCade is this. Fans have a tendency to act based on the minuscule amount of information they're actually given. You have to understand something here, guys. And if you start looking at it like this right here, it's probably going to help you out going forward on how to consume your wrestling media. Okay. If you see a hot tweet, I mean a hot tweet, like, what was a good hot tweet today? Let me think for a second here. Let me think real quick. Actually, let me make this real simple. Let me go to my page because I shared some pretty hot tweets, so to speak, here. Let's see. All right. Besides Carmen Electra. I'm kidding. Oh, let me tell you about Emily J, too. Emily J is a sweetheart. Let's see here. I'm looking for... Because usually I share stuff so that when I go back through to look at what the so-called news has to say, that I've got something to work with. Where is it? It's here somewhere. Give me just one more second because I've got stuff all over the place here. I'm almost there, guys. Oh yeah, here we go. Here's one that everybody's tweeted on so far. they finally got the numbers for Dynamite, etc., and it was like 540, somewhere around in there. And everybody was opining about everything and so on and so forth. And that's not the tweet I'm talking about, but I'm getting to it. That's just one of them for the day. And then I just lost my train of thought because I'm sick as crap. Sorry, guys. I'm working on it. Oh, yeah, the wrestling ratings. Dynamite did like a 530, 540, something like that. And everybody was going, oh. And I'm like, does anybody remember when Dynamite aired on the West Coast? And nobody figured that part out. But all the articles had to do with AEW in the mud. And they don't get that information except through the same tweets that we all get. That's the point I wanted to bring up here. Watch your tweets. Watch the tweets, because you guys see viral tweets just like I do. Your feed, your feed probably looks an awful lot like mine. I follow about 3,500 wrestlers and about 500 people. No, I follow about 3,000 wrestlers and about 500 people. Those are the only ones I follow. And so I catch a lot of their tweets when they tweet, and then I turn around not too much later, and like, I'm not going to call these people out by name, but you'll see like a wrestling blog that is like, forget about the Dynamite rating for a minute. Ricochet did a podcast and said, they were talking to him about how they were blaming him for Samantha leaving ring announcing. And he says, well, she didn't leave because I'm at AEW. She left because of this, that, and the other. And which is what she said too, If you read what Samantha actually posted, I didn't leave ring announcing. I wanted to do more. They didn't want me to do more. I got tired of announcing in the ring, so I just quit. Plain and simple. And that turns into former ring announcer, blah, 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 has nervous breakdown, decides this isn't for her. Yeah, and it's based off a tweet. It's not based off any. They didn't interview her. They didn't get that information from her. They got a little bit of a tweet through what is that, Copilot or one of those AI programs. Excuse me. Threw it through one of those AI programs and generated an article out of it. That's pretty much what it is. They didn't interview her. They didn't do that. So that plays back into what I was telling you about with the wrestlers. When I was talking to some of the wrestlers recognized that. To which I had the same conversation with them that I have with everybody else. Every time that I actually talk to a wrestler, every time a wrestler gives me like 5 minutes of their time, and we get to talking about it, and we get around to the idea of podcasting, we get around to all of that stuff, they look at me and they're like, man, every time I try to do an interview, something always gets screwed up, and, it's nothing personal, but I want to see you do a few, and then, if you're any good, I'll give you a shot, because he said, I quit talking, or he or she, he's like, I've quit talking to most of these people. So I hear that all the time. That I got out of the wrestlers, but here's what else I got out of the wrestlers. And this is very important. This is my own, survey, per se. We'd have a conversation, and things would come around about, particular, so you're going to WWE, going to AEW, going to that, and they would say, well, I'm going wherever I want to go, but I will go to somebody who will go ahead and pick me up so I don't have to worry about whether I'm going to get signed. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And I'm like, so what is your criteria? So what do you look for? And several of the wrestlers told me, look, there's two types of wrestlers out there. There's the wrestler that wants to make their own noise, their own work, their own promos, their own props, their own gear, their own all of this. And they go to the various different promotions that'll let them do it. And then there are some wrestlers who really, really, really like the structure, the organization, the pre-done promos, the pre-done props. They've got ring gear people there that all they got to do is pick up the phone and say, cut us something for WrestleMania, cut us something for, you name it, insert PLE or pay-per-view. Well, PLE in this situation, because that's all WWE does. And so they were like, there's some wrestlers that really dig that. And it's really nice. And they like the exclusivity of WWE. And that I can respect, because some of them don't mind doing independent dates. Some people are doing independent dates as a means to an end. They want to get noticed by WWE. They want to get in under the WWE flag. Because if they make it into the WWE flag, they're not looking for a WrestleMania moment. Because a lot of them knows, I'll never be on WrestleMania, but at least I'll know what I'm doing from week to week. And I don't have concepts handed to me that I have to come up with my own promos for. They hand me promos. And it's the same locker room, the same people all the time. And they really, really want to do that. And then there are some wrestlers that are like, hey, I'd rather go to AEW, because go to AEW I can still work, I can work New Japan, I can work CMLL, I can work independent dates, I can do whatever, I can work how I want to work, and then I just have to take care of myself and don't get hurt for the main show. So there are wrestlers who have a solid level head on their shoulders, and they know what they want to do, and they know how they want to do it. And as a podcaster and somebody who breaks news every once in a while, I do a lot more watch-alongs now than I do reviews. This is like the first review I've done in 2 months, 3 months maybe. First review I've done in several months. But I bought into that whole thing of don't do this and don't do that and don't do that. And what are you doing to yourself and everything like that? Now I don't see it that way. Now I still see some of it that way. I really do, because some people I don't think understand what they're getting themselves into. I think some people have kind of figured that out now, and it's just a little bit too late. But the fact of the matter is, these wrestlers do this stuff. So you're sitting there going, oh, you should come to WWE. They may not like the structure. It's that simple. They may not like any of the structure of WWE. And that's not a reason to dislike them. It's a lot of what we're hearing right now. So for all these people that are sitting there going, oh, they should go here, they should go there, they should go here, they've done everything they're going to do here, they need to go there. Instead of being that way, and this is from firsthand experience, actually talking directly to the wrestlers. And here's some of them that I talked to, just to give you an idea. Talked to Mina Shirakawa. Talked to Tony Storm. Talked to Camille Brickhouse. I talked to some independent wrestlers. Had a conversation with a pretty high-ranking TNA guy. Had a lot of conversations with Zilla Fatu. There are some people who actually appreciate the structure of WWE, and there are some people who actually appreciate the chaos of AEW, and that's why they do what they do. So just in case you think you've really got this wrestler figured out, and you're like, oh, no, they'd never do well in AEW. You don't know. Roxanne might be looking at AEW down the road. That doesn't mean that you get to hate them because they go to a different promotion. There's no reason for that. So basically what you're doing is this. You're wasting your fandom on dirt sheet repertoires. You're wasting your fandom on dirt sheet recipes. You're wasting your fandom, and a lot of these wrestlers really appreciate the fandom. Now, I didn't say the weirdness. I didn't say go out there and be a weirdo. But one thing that I picked up about the wrestlers while I was there is they really appreciated the fandom. And I don't think that I'm not going to say any because that's just too much of a blanket statement. I think there's a lot of fans out there that don't quite understand that all wrestlers want to do is get in the ring and do their job. Just like you go to work and do your job. And I'm going to I'm relating this in this way here. There are two types of employees. There are people who wake up every day proud to have a 9-to-5, proud to have a clock to punch in, some benefits to look over, a set, scheduled, rigorous job. There are people who live for that. There are people that they spend in excess of $100,000 on the proper education to go sit at a desk and punch a time card. Then there are people who think that punching a time card is absolutely asinine. Count me in the latter, because I've done both. But now, if somebody wants to go out and work a 9-to-5 and so on and so forth, there's nothing wrong with that. And if you want to go out and be a contractor, there's nothing wrong with that. Wrestling works the exact same way. It's time as fans that we step up, do our part, and stop putting so much uncanny pressure on these guys to do what we want them to do. When you start seeing wrestlers pop out and say, guys, just enjoy wrestling, that means they're self-aware and they are aware of what you're saying, and they're basically in a very nice way saying, we're giving you access right now. Don't fuck it up. When a wrestler comes out and says, just enjoy wrestling, what they're trying to tell you is your access is limited to your attitude. Fix your attitude. Bottom line. That's what they mean. And I had that told to me point blank. You know, when I mentioned it to some of the wrestlers, I'm like, yeah, I see a lot of y'all out there now just posting, just enjoy wrestling. And they're like, every single one of them, it was unanimous. They're like, yeah, that's your first, only, and last warning. And like, if you're really doing a podcast, be sure to say that. And I said, okay. Now, you have my permission to say that, and I'm not going to say who said it. But, you know, they're like, when we say just enjoy wrestling, that's your first, only, and last warning. We can cut off access. And I agree, they can do that. So that's one of the takeaways that I got from the scenario. The other takeaway that I got from this, one of the other takeaways that I got from the scenario is a lot of these folks are living just fine. Some of them are a little bit tight, money-wise. But they're enjoying what they do. They're managing their money. They're doing it the way they need to do it. They're in the ring. They're working. And I really wish I could remember that young lady's name that got hurt in Ladies Night Out 14. We did have one officially get hurt. By the time I come back to the next stream, or by the time I get ready to do that, I will indeed have that name. But we all need to keep all these wrestlers in your thoughts, prayers, however you manage it, karma, whatever. And we need to keep them in there, especially for the holiday season, because there's going to be a lot of shows that get worked. Fortunately or unfortunately, the bigs are probably not doing as much of that. But like Heath Slater says, we got kids to feed around this mug, so a lot of the independents will be working during the holidays. And if you really truly are a fan of independent wrestling, I would encourage you to buy a ticket, buy a stream. You would be very surprised at how much just buying a stream supports your favorite wrestler. You know. And like I said, on Friday, after I'm 100% sure that all the other stories have been told, I'm going to come back with a ton of stories myself that I got on my own. I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to say something that might mess up something for something else, because I'm just not that guy. I'm not the breaking news kind of guy. I'm not, because a lot of times when news breaks, it's already broken and it can't be fixed, and the first person to spew it out is the first person who gets caught saying it. And that's neither here nor there either, but as soon as I am 100% sure that it is okay, I got a lot of good stories to tell. The wrestling was phenomenal. I saw Jordan Grace wrestle twice. Saw Zilla Fatu wrestle 3 times. Saw James Storm wrestle. The list is infinitely long. I saw Raj Desni wrestle, formerly known as Jinder Mahal. Saw Matt Riddle wrestle 3 times. Unfortunately, I saw Joe Hendry wrestle 3 times. I swear to God, man, they glazed the hell out of that guy. His gimmick's going to be dead by the time he gets anywhere within sniffing distance of WWE, and it's obvious he fanboys over that so much. And apparently, that. Saw Brock Anderson wrestle twice. Got tapped on the shoulder by Arn Anderson, which was kind of intimidating if you're intimidated by that sort of thing. The memories are just endless on this. I just don't want to get too deep into it yet, because I don't want to spoil anything that's coming up. And a lot of you that watch me watch him, so I don't want to take a shot at, throwing something out there. Oh yeah, Matt said that. I don't want that. We're not going to have that. Not today, not now, not ever. We are going to do a live watch-along here in approximately an hour and a half. And I don't think I'm going to be talking for an hour and a half if I want to do that watch-along. What we're going to wind up doing, though, is I'm going to cover the matches. We're going to talk about a little bit about politics, because I learned a few things about that. We're going to talk a little bit about interview style, because I learned a lot about that. I learned a lot this weekend. It was just a learning experience. I hate that I'm sick. I hate that I don't feel well. But everybody's sick that I talked to and hung out with, and we came there and had a good time, and so on and so forth. There was the bar stories. There was the chance meetings, per se. I bought a wrestler a drink, just out of courtesy. Things like that, so on and so forth. Things that I'll get into deeper, because it's some of it's funny, some of it's not so funny, some of it's serious, most of it's jovial. Most of your shows like that, when they put them on, I've kind of figured that out. They are jovial. And starting in the new year, I'm going to hit about 3 of these conventions, so be on the lookout, because I'm going to be bringing live stuff with me. I think I'm changing up my ideas on how I want to do things. It's just a matter of getting the time, the place, and everything else set up to go ahead and do like I want to do. Other than that, like I said, me and Catherine talked about something that we want to do next year, and yeah, I do want to do that. I think it's a great idea. So next year at WrestleCade, and if you have another idea that plays into that idea, I'm down. Because once I thought about what you said, I'm like, hell yeah, they didn't have that at all. That's something they didn't have. So we just need to make sure that they're not going to do it. But then, yeah, I'm down for that. But what I'm going to do is, because my voice is absolutely failing me, and I just realized there's not a whole lot I can talk about without stepping on anybody's toes. I had a couple of thoughts I wanted to get out there, though. The wrestling thing that I've figured out this weekend's been absolutely phenomenal. The 2 big takeaways that I wanted to bring back to the show, which I think I did, wrestlers do not like to be misquoted, which nobody likes to be misquoted, so there's that. And that wrestlers do actually fall into categories that work better with WWE or work better with the rest of the promotions. And when I say WWE now, you might as well say WWE, AAA, and any of their affiliates. And then there are some wrestlers that work out better in the AEW style. It's not a matter of necessity. It's a matter of preference, and it's okay. Wrestling, because wrestling actually offers different genres to work in now, that makes it better for all of us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop for right now and be back with the watch along at 8 o'clock Eastern time. And then, of course, like I said, tonight, I've been saying this on a regular basis, tonight after Dynamite, make sure you catch at The Covalent TV or The Covalent TV for the recap. And Daryl's got some stories. If you missed tonight's show, you will have definitely missed it. You will have missed it, absolutely missed it, all the way across the board, because I have a feeling once he gets into telling these stories that it's going to be one hell of a show. It's probably going to be a long show. We're probably going to be there till late, probably going to have a good time. And if I'm feeling okay, there will be a Fat Tire ale on the spot for the watch along, because I wanted to have one tonight because Fat Tire is one of my favorite beers out there. And I wanted to enjoy that while we were just watching wrestling, so to speak. But what will happen is here, I'm going to drop the stream now, and then I will be back at 8 o'clock on the nose, or, a couple minutes early. I'll be there for the live watch-along for AEW Dynamite. We got the Continental Classic kicking through tonight. We got women's qualifying matches for the Fatal 4-Way in New Japan on January the 5th. We've got all kinds of good stuff going on tonight, and I will do a full wrestling review, and I should be able to tell some of my stories by Friday when we get ready to do. I'm not sure yet how I'm going to do this. I do know that one weekend I'm going to be skipping SmackDown altogether to do a New Japan Pro Wrestling watch along. And we're probably going to break into that a little bit. And we're going to talk about some of the friends that I made. I actually made some good wrestling friends. People that I can DM. They DM me back. We have a good time. We talk about shit. Chop up a little bit of game. Set up some interviews. Do that thing. And I'm going to have an interview with the Black Dahlia. And I'm going to have an interview with Evil Nate coming up here. And I'm going to have an interview with both of them together. This is actually going to happen. So these are going to be my first 3 interviews that I've done ever. So y'all keep me in your thoughts on that one, because it's been a minute since I've done an interview with video involved. I've interviewed on the radio tons of times. It's almost like a second nature to me. But at that point in time there, got caught a little bit off guard. And I'll tell you about some times that I almost folded, and I'll tell you about a couple of times that I damn near broke. But we're going to do that. We'll be back here at about 5 minutes to 8 Eastern. However that works out from wherever you're watching me right now, we're going to be back at 5 minutes to 8 Eastern. And we will have the cam up, and it will look a little something like that right there. As you can tell, we got the cam back up and working now. So we're going to be doing that live watch along here tonight for AEW Dynamite, and that will happen at approximately an hour and a half. But for right now, I'm not even going to say goodnight, America, wherever you are, because we're going to be right back at about 8 o'clock, give or take. But I do thank you for hanging out with me here on the Sicko Show and Grabs TV. I've been your host, the Matty Man. And we'll be back at 8 o'clock for the live watch-along. As you can tell, the reason I just don't feel like talking, but I didn't want to not stream because can't go 2 weeks without streaming. That's just not how life works. We got 21 viewers right now. Hell yes. 21 is good. Thank you guys for hanging out. If you will, come back at around 8 o'clock. It's going to be roughly an hour and a half. You come back around 8 o'clock. we're going to do that live watch along, and I'm going to drop a couple of stories while we're doing that. And if I'm feeling any better, we're going to have a Fat Tire beer to celebrate that as well. So join us back here in about an hour and a half on Graps TV and the Sicko Show for our live watch along of AEW Dynamite Continental Classic, tournament qualifier for the women's Fatal 4-Way at New Japan at Wrestle Dynasty. And there's a lot going on tonight. There's a lot going on. They're going to have a 12-man battle royal. They're going to have some Continental Classic matches. And I'll tell you a little story about watching Shelton Benjamin work. And, I was at the match. I watched him work Speedball Mike Bailey. Hopefully, Speedball's not that far behind from what I understand. I did not talk directly to Speedball except to say, hey, how you doing? And how impressed I was with the work that I'd seen. I went through some of the works that I had actually seen. And, we had a pretty good time. So, but we'll cover all that in our live watch-along. As you can tell, my voice is starting to give out a little bit. So I probably need to take a little break here. We'll be right back. And like I said, we'll do the watch-along, and all will be well, I hope. So just stick with us. We'll be back probably an hour and a half, give or take, and we'll be ready for Dynamite. So we'll just see you then. All right, and thanks for joining us on Graps TV and the Sicko Show. It's been your host, the Matty Man. We'll be back in an hour and a half. Let's just kill that right now. Right now. Maybe I'll be in a better mood too, who knows? Shoot. Getting back to streaming and doing stuff that I normally do shit ain't working. Excuse me.